Hello everyone, this is Darcenova here. This is the final story arc of Star Wars Republic, chronologically. Now, I've read through this whole series pretty much, and I'm not gonna lie, this is hard to pretty much let go, considering Star Wars Republic to me has some of my favorite Star Wars stories ever. And not to mention, Quillen Voss is one of my favorite characters. I think he's well written. I thought he has a great story arc, and felt the way this comic, well, we're about to get into it. The way this comic ends his arc was beautiful. Now, this comic takes place during the events of Revenge of the Sith. Even though I haven't reviewed the novelization yet, I'm still doing this because the comics take less time to get through than novels. Now, this takes place, on the Battle of Kashyyyk in Revenge of the Sith during the events from the perspective of Quillen Voss. And we also get to witness Order 66 from the perspective of Quillen Voss. And this is the comic that completes his story arc that was started, during the pre-episode 2, stories. Because this series started pre-episode 1 and it ends after Revenge of the Sith. Now, how well does it actually end Quillen Voss's story? Because there was talks, at least by John Ostrander, that originally Quillen Voss was going to die at the end of the story. But George Lucas vetoed it. One of the few times he actually prevented the death of an expanded universe character. Because George Lucas liked Quillen Voss. And, well, we know that what happened with Star Wars Underworld. It never saw the light of day, but he wanted Quillen Voss alive so he could be in there. Quite a shame, because this is the ending of Quillen Voss's story, and we don't know what happens after that. We don't, with his son, what happens to Quillen Voss? His fate was left unknown. His story arc is concluded, but I would like to know what happens next. But maybe that's for the best, because sometimes when you have a character whose entire arc is completed, continuing their story after that is forced. It does more damage to the character than good. And, well, the artwork, as usual, since I always bring up the art when I review a comic, is amazing. I mean, there hasn't been a single story arc featuring this character, or even this entire comic run, where the art is terrible. I mean, this to me is Star Wars. I'm very picky when it comes to art. This has some of my favorite comic panels. Oh god, I love this. And I love this as well. I mean, this art is beautiful in this comic, and witnessing Quillen Voss finally overcoming the dark side, I think this is why I think his arc is complete by this point, because Quillen Voss's entire story arc is him, overcoming the darkness within him, because it's always been something that he's struggled with throughout his entire character arc. And I think this comic, does an amazing job of actually showing Quillen Voss overcoming that. And perhaps, even though I would love to see Quillen Voss, his story continue to some extent, but then I'm glad his story ended here. Because what more can you do with the character, other than him, training his son to be a Jedi? And maybe his son could have helped Luke rebuild his Jedi Order. Now, even though this particular volume that I have in my hand has a story arc that takes place after it, those comics were released before this. And not to mention, those comics take place after Revenge of the Sith. So I'm not going to review anything after Revenge of the Sith until after I read the novelization. even though the epilogue takes place 8 months after Revenge of the Sith, considering most of the comic takes place during it, I see no reason why I can't review it. So what about if I'm a little bit ahead of the timeline in the comics? It doesn't make a difference. Anyway, people, this is Darcenovia. I'll see you guys in the next review. That'll either be Order 66, which is definitely going to be it, or Revenge of the Sith novelization. Whatever I finish first. It's likely going to be Order 66. Peace out, everyone.